Stop spinning. We're doing our podcast.
The Freedom Spin.
All right, so Ultimate Freedom Podcast, right?
Right. That's what it's all about.
So this is our first episode.
Number one of many.
We haven't planned this at all.
Not really. Actually, we planned this out on a 5-minute motorcycle ride through Chiang Mai, Thailand on the way here, if that says anything. But
that's where we are. All right, so what about this place? Tell me about this place.
This is one of my favorite places in Chiang Mai. It's like I always try to get this. It's like an Airbnb place.
So you got the theater, built-in theater with the nice chairs.
And the blue felt billiard table, which is pretty awesome.
So anyway, so let's talk about this podcast. So how long has it been that we've been talking about doing a podcast and that people have been asking us to share more information about our travels? And
it's been years since we've been talking about doing a podcast. Unfortunately, it's like Rob and I will get on, a phone call and spend 4 hours basically until we can't stand to hear our own voices anymore. And then after doing about 100 hours of just talking on the phone, this is years ago, we decided that man, we should be recording this shit because we talk about so many subjects and we do have some real high level knowledge and experience in so many different areas, and some of the stuff we just get into is just funny and we're entertained. We're entertained.
I never get tired of my own voice.
Me neither. Yeah. But so we figured we should just do a podcast, and then it just never sort of came to be. But then
we had all these conversations where we'd get to the end and we're like, shit, we should have recorded that.
Seems like a waste now.
So now we've got it's been a couple of years now. We've been doing Rise Academy. Successful students. They flew out to Bali, met us here, got a taste of a bit of the experience that we do in our lives. So let me ask you some questions. Why don't you kind of describe what life is like for you now compared to what life was like for you before? So you've gone through this transition. Now you're living in Bali. You were living in San Diego. Drastically different life and lifestyle. How does it feel now that you're in Bali?
It feels incredible, actually, almost like a dream world for me. It feels like it's a dream. I look at it a little bit like this, okay? I feel like I've been spending the last, so many years of my life, like 15 years of my life or something like that, 12 years, just chasing financial freedom. That was the big target, it was like financial freedom. In the back of my mind, it was really just I want to be rich, I want to have a shit ton of money and my life will get better. I think when I first started thinking about that from the very beginning, I felt like I knew what I was chasing, or at least I had some idea in my mind what I was chasing. And then I got into the rat race and stopped really knowing what it was that I was looking for. I had this sort of idea of financial freedom, this is what I'm going after, it's freedom, financial freedom. But I stopped even really understanding what that meant. It was more like I'm just going, and I just don't take a break.
And you lived that whole time in San Diego?
Yeah, the whole time in San Diego.
And there's a lot of internet marketers in San Diego, so you're kind of comparing yourself to other internet marketers, and you're defining success by them.
That's true. But even from the very beginning, it was even when I was a teenager, I still had this mentality that, I come from a very poor family, and I thought I'm going to change something in my life, right? And I thought, financial freedom. I didn't use those words back then in my mind even, but it was more I just want to be rich or be a millionaire or something like that.
Which is basically even a tiny portion of the concept of ultimate freedom that we've been discussing for so long.
Exactly, because you don't really understand what freedom really is, ultimate freedom really is. The concept of ultimate freedom came after financial freedom came. Mm-hmm. Financial freedom comes, and then suddenly you're you wake up and you're wait, do I have it now? Do I have freedom? Is this what it is? And then you're that's why I describe it as a doorway. Financial freedom is sort of like money is the key that opens the door to ultimate freedom. And financial freedom is just, is just one little piece of that. So once you have financial freedom, suddenly all the things that you think of when you think of ultimate freedom start to become at your fingertips. It's like if you want to just hop on a plane and travel anywhere in the world anytime you want, well, financial freedom is the key to get you there. Like you can't do it if you don't have money. If you want to be able to bounce around, the world and live in, these luxurious places and stay in kick-ass, like Airbnbs or just rent, or lease or buy these big-ass, estates and mansions and stuff like that, you can do that, but financial freedom is the key to get you there. And there's all these different things that open up to you as you've experienced as well.
So how has your view, though, changed on what's required to be considered financially free? Like since you've been traveling the world, you've experienced different cultures. There's some places that are cheaper than others.
Well, that's the cool thing. It's like hacking your way to financial freedom. I have like Mr. Lopez, Ty Lopez, and we talk about him sometimes. But he's just this guy. He's kind of an internet celebrity, good friend of mine, business partner of mine as well. And people used to talk a lot of shit about him. I'm sure people do now. Mm-hmm. But the idea is, people are saying like, oh yeah, he's renting that $44 million mansion.
That sounds horrible.
It sounds horrible. Like that Lamborghini, the Ferrari, the Maserati.
That must really
Rolls-Royce,
eat at him while he's riding his Maserati through Hollywood. It must really eat at him that is leased.
It's leased, yeah. I'm like, give me a fucking break, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you stop and you just soak in your experience that you're having right now and evaluate the way that you feel. And if you feel like you're experiencing freedom in this moment, then you are. And who gives a shit if it's leased or rented or whatever? We travel around a lot around Asia, and you can't even buy houses in most countries in Asia as a foreigner. It's just not, it's not even legal. You can do leases, but yeah, so like what is financial freedom? What does it mean to me? I think it's just a feeling, more or less. I get it often when I'm here. When I was in San Diego, I got a little bit, but coming down the path trying to find financial freedom, I would get these glimpses of it where, you make a bunch of money and then you're like, whoa, this is awesome. But you always feel like you're gonna lose it. You always feel like maybe you're still limited in some ways, and that's not really freedom. Freedom is feeling like there are no limitations, and it's a scary place to be too. Like, like if you have too much freedom, it's like a very sweet and alluring thing to have excess, like excess where you can do anything you fucking want.
And then you just end up sleeping in, staying at home and not doing anything.
Yeah, that can happen too. But but I remember feeling like walking down a beach in Gili Islands at one point, and I was like holding this girl's hand, and feeling like I didn't have to be anywhere. I didn't have anybody pulling me any direction or pushing me any direction. And I was like in the moment, like this is fucking awesome. I have everything that I desire right here with me right now, and nothing pushing me or pulling me away, or so that moment I felt like this is ultimate freedom. But then you got to kind of balance and juggle and hold on to that feeling. If you have a $5,000 budget to go on vacation, do you feel free? Maybe in a moment, you might, and then you feel like, but I got to go back to work, So no. I look at financial freedom, and ultimate freedom as three different things, very different things. So financial freedom is like a key, that opens up the doorway to ultimate freedom. Freedom is a moment, and ultimate freedom is just having this all-encompassing experience. Like I'm trying to generate for myself, and I think you are too. Just where, it's like what is financial, or what is ultimate freedom? And
let's talk about that. So obviously financial freedom is a part of it. Everybody talks about that. We've been focusing on that for years, but it probably hasn't really felt like we had really total freedom until recently in the last few years when we started experiencing this different sort of lifestyle. So there's a financial freedom aspect of it, but then there's also the aspects like being able to go anywhere you want to go. So working like from different locations, so kind of location independence is one aspect of it. which comes along with doing an internet business like we do. And then there's kind of like you said, I don't have to be anywhere. I can do what I want now. Your time is really valuable, and being able to do with your time what you want. So not having like your work dictate your time is a big aspect of it. And then the happiness aspect of it, being able to feel happy now and not being reliant on other things to be happy right now, and being happy from day to day, which we talked about as something that we could probably do an entire episode on.
And we should. Actually, we will be doing plenty of episodes. Let me throw a couple other ideas in there too. See, we have like thousands of customers, and we've asked these questions so many times, like what is it that, you know, drives you? Like if you're working your ass off every day, you know, you wake up in the morning, like what is it that is like makes you feel like, okay, I got to get out of bed and I got to work, I got to fucking, you know, get going. What fuels that energy? You know, and most people tend to say it's freedom, or it's some version of freedom. So some of the things that we talk about are some of the things that, you know, like our students would talk about would be like their passions, you know, like being able to pursue a passion, I think is a big one. Or they'll have like a family member who's sick. And by the way, we were rushing around to get ready for this. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to transfer money to one of my best friend who just went through brain surgery and doesn't have the money to pay for it here in Bali or here in Indonesia. And having the ability to just pay her fucking hospital bill for brain surgery when she didn't have insurance, you know, and now her whole fight, she's financially devastated over it. But to be able to have a friend and be able to fucking just rescue them from a moment like that, that's an intense feeling of freedom.
The ability to kind of give back and help out your friends and family.
Right, it just never struck me like, okay, well that's cool, because like I have you know, students who are like what, you know, say that like what's it? I don't remember. I don't want to name names, but a few of our students who said that like they're taking care of their mother, their father, a family member, and they're struggling financially, and the hospital bills, the nursing home bills, and everything are just like outrageous. And so they want to come in and learn how to become financially free so that they can cover those costs and give a loved one, you know, like a better lifestyle, you know, in their final years and things like that. It never really struck me as like, okay, yeah, I get it, you know, it makes sense. But until like right now, when I'm like, this person is again financially devastated in the hospital, you know, with somebody digging around in their brain, you know, just save their lives, and they got this huge burden, you know, like, you know, can't sleep at night on top of the fear of dying, you know. And to be able to go in there, it's like, who the fuck am I? I'm nobody, but I can sign a check that will change the life of the people around me. So things like that, I think, matter a lot. Things like that make you feel like, man, I'm in a position, you know, financial freedom puts you in a position to do things that you could not do otherwise. You know, it's not just about like having some success. Oh, we just, you know, had a 7-figure product launch, great. But it's like, this is an exploration of like what's behind that door. Like, what is ultimate freedom? What is your life like? You know, and we probably haven't even experienced just a tiny little piece of what having financial freedom allows you to experience, you know. So I don't even know what ultimate freedom is going to look like. I know what it feels like right now in this moment, again, just by this experience I just had this morning, you know, and so many of the experiences I've had in the last couple of years, you know, being here in Asia and traveling around. But there's still so much more, I think, that we can explore and talk about, you know.
Well, you know, for me, I remember when I first moved out here, and I went to Bali first because you recommended it to me, and a few people recommended it to me. And at the time, I wasn't in a great situation. It wasn't bad, but I had a product that kind of like a failed product launch because I'd gone through a really bad breakup in the middle of the product launch. And when I moved out to Bali, and you moved out to Bali, you kind of like got a place and settled in there and really put in some roots in Bali, and then you travel around a lot. And I've just been doing the digital nomad thing, just traveling nonstop.
How long do you stay in a place usually?
It varies, anywhere from a couple days to a couple weeks or a month. Usually it's for about a month because.
And you've been doing this for?
About 3 years, and traveling kind of internationally for about 2 years. So the first year or so, 6 months, was just hopping around the U.S. mainly, visiting family. I think Hawaii was probably the most exotic place I went.
Yeah.
And then, but I mean, I noticed the difference as soon as I got to Bali, that the difference in the exchange rates and stuff, like your money goes so much further, that even though I wasn't really in a place to focus on business that much, I wasn't very focused at all. My bank balance kind of didn't go down.
Yeah.
You know, so I started to feel a lot more freedom because I didn't have pressure. And it took me some time where I was just floating around, traveling, not really focusing that much on work, to kind of regain my footing, recover from a breakup, kind of be myself again. You know?
Let me put it like, let me ask you this. Okay, so if you think about the needs in life, you know, like what are the actual needs that you have in life? So it's not like, you know, I need a new drone, you know, like because I love drones. Like, what do you actually need? So the big three niches, you know, we're in marketing, right? So health, wealth, and relationships, and probably happiness, right? In general, to kind of fill in all the gaps. So how do you, I mean, you know, how do those things stack up now compared to like if you were in the States? You obviously are making a shit ton more money now than you were a few years ago. You have, you know, that bank account, you know, big fat bank accounts and stuff.
The way that I think about it, you know, Maslow's pyramid. Are you familiar with it? The basic levels of needs for humans, there's the stuff that we need to survive. You know, there's like oxygen, and there's, you know, food and water and things like that. So it starts off with the very basic needs, and then once you have those covered, then you start focusing on sort of more high level stuff, you know, self-improvement and just like, you know, kind of ego-driven stuff, and spirituality and things like that. Like if you don't have water, then you know, that's going to be the one thing you're focusing on. Yeah. You know, but once you reach a point where your basic needs are covered, then you're able to be, you know, okay, now I can be a vegan. You know, like if you're starving and there's like a piece of chicken, then it's going to be hard to stick to. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, so your core needs really drive things if they're not being met. So when I first moved out here and I didn't have the financial freedom, I was more focused in the States on the finances, which is just a basic need. In this day and age, you have to have money to survive. So I was more in like survival mode more often. Once I got out of that pressure, it's like finances weren't a hard thing anymore. You can reach that status. Do you think about money right now very often? No, I mean, it's never like a limiting factor. How
much of that has to do with how much money you're making, and how much of it has to do with you're living in a third world country where things are like 10 times cheaper? What's the easiest path to financial freedom?
Both of us really hate doing finances and really hate doing accounting, basically.
Yeah, big time.
So we never really balance our checkbooks in the business like we should.
We probably owe each other. Somebody owes somebody like hundreds of thousands of dollars in there. We don't even know.
I don't know. It's just I reached a threshold at some point where I had enough money in the bank where it never became a thought of like. I was also raised poor. 7 kids. My mom was like stay-at-home mom. My dad worked. My mom was super frugal. I never really understood money that much when I was a kid, but I understood that we were really frugal. And so that was kind of ingrained into me. So I'll be hanging out at a place and I get used to the currency in a location. Say you go to dinner in Thailand and it costs, you're looking at the dishes on the menu, and you see this is 100 baht. This is 200 baht. And I don't really associate it with like how much that is in US dollars. after a while you just see how much stuff costs. And so you might think like, oh, a taxi is supposed to cost 200 or 300 baht for this distance, and then you think, oh, this guy's trying to charge more. So just the frugal side of me tries to get the best deal, but then I have these moments of clarity where I'm like, wait a minute, like,
what am I bitching
let me
for?
pull this out and do the conversion, and it's like, oh, this is not that expensive.
Yeah.
You know, but even when stuff is expensive, like my idea of what I used to think was expensive is not expensive anymore.
Yeah.
So there's kind of both sides of it. So as soon as I started traveling the world in different countries, in countries like Bali and Southeast Asia, your money goes so far that even if you don't have a lot of money, you don't really have to think about money that much. But I've also traveled through Europe, and I've traveled through the Caribbean, all these different places. And when you're hanging out in Barcelona or Tokyo, you know, things are expensive. And it's not a stressful thing at all, because it's not going to make a dent in my budget that's going to be that big a deal. But again, that's just one element of it. We're kind of focusing on finances a lot. But you asked me about
so the
big three: health, wealth, and
I mean, health is a
relationships.
major issue. It's a very expensive issue, you know, in the United States. Here, you know, I've seen, you know, like my friend got brain surgery, and it cost like 135 million in IDR, whatever that
Rupiah.
is, like $10,000 or something. In America, that would be 10 times as much probably for the same thing.
That'd be
but
bankrupt.
relative to what the cost of living is in Bali, I mean, it's like would devastate a single person and their entire family all chipping in to try to like save the life of a loved one, you know?
Well, I mean, I have a story. I was in South Korea for 2 months, hanging out with a buddy there, and he told me, you know, if you want to get any work done, any like procedures that you need, this is a good place to do it. And for years I'd had issues with my sinuses and my nose specifically. When there's cigarette smoke, I get swelling inside my nose. And I had gone to, I had insurance in California, for Kaiser. Everybody does Kaiser in California. Mm-hmm. And since I was an entrepreneur, I was paying my own way. It was like $300 or $400 a month just for my premium for just a single healthy guy. And that wasn't even like the best plan, so I still had high copays and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I remember I made an appointment with the ear, nose, and throat doctor. You have to see the specialist. Right. And I had to pay the copay, and then I had to pay the sort of whatever they call them, the copays on the tests that they do. So first of all, I had to schedule it 2 months in advance, because that's how busy they were, to see that specialist. And once I got in to see him, they did the scans that they do on your head and the MRIs and I guess they probably did some blood work and stuff. And I think I probably spent $300 or $400 just on the copays for the tests, with insurance. And then I would have had to schedule it out several months in advance to get the surgery, and I just had never gotten around to doing it. But what they told me was I had a slightly deviated septum. The middle part of your nose is kind of, probably most people know a little bit about this because it's a common problem. And I had kind of the swelling on the sides, and so they could do a procedure that would use radio frequency waves to shrink down the kind of fleshy stuff inside your nose. And then he said he wasn't going to do anything about the deviated septum because it was minor. And that would have cost me thousands of dollars. And I'm sitting there thinking like, I should do it all in 1 year, because there's a maximum of like $5,000 that you pay per year for premiums for procedures. So I was trying to like pack them all in 1 year, because as soon as I got onto the next year, the 5,000 reset. Right. And you're basically paying 100% up to $5,000, and then they cover beyond that. So I was like weighing my options and trying to time it. Well, I never gotten around to doing it. And then I was in South Korea, and he says, just do this. So my friend, his wife is Korean, so she came with me to help translate. She researched, she found a clinic that was an ear, nose, and throat specializing clinic. And we showed up on a Monday morning at 10 a.m. with no appointment, and the doctor saw me within 5 minutes of showing up. And I'm sitting in the chair, everything's sparkling clean and very nice, and they use like a scope to look inside my nose, and they have a big screen monitor where I can see inside, like, and while he's doing it, he's explaining to me what's going on. And this is literally like 10 minutes after I showed up. And, you know, he's a very knowledgeable doctor, he, obviously, but you know, you think like,
no, I get it.
You know, you're in another country, you don't know what to expect, but very educated, Western educated, you know.
Let me just add, though, that some of the doctors in Bali and around Asia are not like the best doctors to go to.
The communication barrier.
Communication barrier, but also it's just like, you know, you should be getting medicine throughout the night. They should be changing your IV drips and stuff like that, and they're just like, yeah, we're sleeping. You know?
Little research is good to know, like, where to go.
Where to go. Go to the best
Thailand
places.
is good for certain things.
Singapore is great.
Singapore is good.
Thailand's good.
So there I was, and he's showing me what's going on, and he tells me the exact same diagnosis that took me 2 months to get an appointment, another however long they took to do the tests, get the results back, and give me the actual diagnosis and the options. Within 10, 15 minutes, I had all the same information. And he says, so do you want to do the procedure? Here's what we can do. And he said, there's a little bit of a communication barrier, so that he's speaking a little bit of English, a little bit of Korean. My friend's wife is translating, but she didn't want to, I don't know, she was impatient. She didn't want to go too deep into, she was just like, hey, do you want to do this? You know, do your nose or whatever. So, so I'm listening to the doctor, and his English is decent. But they explained it, and just I had a lot of confidence in him because he was so knowledgeable. Mm-hmm. And they said, oh, well, you need like 30 days. Do you have 30 days? And what I'm thinking is, I have to schedule it 30 days out. That's when they can do it. And I said, well, I'm only here for a few weeks, but if it's worth it, I can extend it. I'm thinking, how much is this going to be? Is it expensive? And so they go and they start calculating the numbers, and my friend's wife looks at me, she's like, how much do you think it's going to be? Just kind of got this little smirk. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it would have been thousands of dollars in the US, I have no idea. And she says it's going to be $300. Damn. I'm like, shit. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And she's like, okay. So yeah, you want to do it? Okay. All right, well, let's go. I'm like, but like now? She's like, yeah, let's go. And I had this moment where I'm sitting there and I'm just like, fuck it. Yeah, let's do it. And so they bring me over into the operating room and they set me up, and I have a photo, you've probably seen it. Before that, they packed my nose full of tissues that they dipped in like numbing stuff, so they stuck that. So I'm waiting before I went into the operation room, I'm waiting in the waiting area for 10 minutes for it to kick in. And I take a selfie and I post it on Facebook while I'm waiting. And then I head over to the operating room and they set me up. And literally 30 minutes after I showed up, I'm in there, and the doctor and his assistant are in there operating on my nose. And they did the procedure, and it went pretty well. I won't get into the details of that. I don't want to get too gory or anything. But yeah, they zapped my nose so that it shrunk the stuff. It was painless. It was easy. And they even got me a discount. They like discounts in Korea, so it was like $283 or $286 or something. And then I did my follow-up appointments every 3 days, and it cost me $10. And that was the entire cost of the thing, to get like super specialized hands-on help from a very attentive, knowledgeable doctor. So I mean, healthcare is a lot simpler. It's more complicated to work with insurance than to just pay cash.
Here's the funny thing, you know, like you want to think about things like this. So if you want to set yourself on a path toward financial freedom, or just toward, you know, freedom, ultimate freedom, I like to think of like, what's the fastest path to get you there? So if you were examining your life and thinking like, you know, what's the most costly aspect of my life, or what's most challenging, you know, what's the area of my life that I need to work on the most, you know, that would bring me the most happiness? If you are not in good health, how do you resolve that? You know, maybe you have like really, really good insurance as one path, I suppose. Maybe if you're already in bad health, getting really good insurance might not be that easy for you. But you know, you could make a ton of money so that like the cost of healthcare doesn't really matter, but that's not a quick path. You could spend 15 years of your life trying to achieve that. Or you could hop on a plane and go, say you need severe dental work done. Hop on a plane, spend $500 or something on a plane ticket to go to Thailand and get your dental work done the next day and then fly back next week, Right. I mean, you could spend a month here, in Thailand just having an amazing time with your sparkling new teeth.
Max was making the point, if you bought the plane ticket to Korea and got the surgery and flew back and had a vacation there, you'd spend less money than doing it in the US.
Yeah, and some of the biggest pain points I think related to healthcare is just the fucking waiting, man. Like, waiting for like 60 days or something just to see a specialist, and then when you go in there, they're rushing you through like cattle. You have like 5 minutes to see the doctor, and then they tell you like, okay, it looks like we're gonna have to run some more tests, so come back in 2 weeks, run some more tests, and then you get there, you got 5 more minutes with the doctor, and they're like, okay, so we know what that is. Now we're gonna run you some more tests over here. It can be like 2-3 months or more before you have any clue what's going on. And you just painted the picture of like 20 minutes in and then the same day procedure, for a fraction of the cost. I mean, so.
I've got a list of things I wanna do that over the years they're like on my to-do list. Like for example, I wore braces when I was a teenager.
Oh, yeah.
And I never wore the retainer. So I always wanted to get my teeth straightened, but I didn't want to get braces again. So I thought I'll do Invisalign, because then you don't have like braces, right? But you can fix it. They're straight enough. I could probably do it in under 6 months. That's on my list. I'll go to Thailand to do that. Nice. I've got my tonsils. I always had issues with tonsils, but I don't want to like have the bad recovery that they talk about. But there's a procedure that they could do that's like super painless. You recover in 2 or 3 days. I had my assistant research it. The best place is Singapore. I'm gonna go to Singapore, get that done, and that'll improve aspects of my health. I think you've got some examples, like for example, when it comes to health, like fitness, right? You don't want to like go to the gym and motivate yourself, so you just hire a trainer to come and do the motivation for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could go to a gym, and a gym membership or having like a personal trainer at a gym might cost you a few $100s a month in the States. But you can hire a full-time, trainer, in Bali for less or the same, that will come there and like, be like a yoga, like a yoga instructor / resistance training workout, accountability coach, maybe, what do you call it? Like a nutritionist. You can have like this all-in-one, like resource.
Or multiple people. I mean, you've got your own chef that cooks you food daily, right?
Yeah, I have a personal chef, a personal masseuse, a Bahasa instructor, like language teacher, maids and nannies and all kinds of shit. I can't even count the number of like people. I mean, I could count them, but not off the top of my head, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's always people there. One of the great things about living in third world countries is I think it just opens up the door to delegating your time away, to other people, that it's like you're giving a job to somebody. I'm like, what's the average income of somebody in Bali? It was like a high school graduate in Bali.
Like at a retail store or something like that?
Yeah, like if you worked in the mall, a lot of people will work
it's only $200 or $300 a month.
Yeah. In fact, I think most people that I've asked, are anywhere from 2 to 3 million IDR, which is about 150 to 225, 250, something like that, dollars per month for full time. They're probably working Saturdays too, 6 days a week, 8-hour days.
Yeah.
And they're happy,
Well, like it's funny, like your personal masseuse Just hangs out and plays with the kids.
She's half nanny, she's half masseuse, and she's a half, just maid. Like
just to fill in her time, because it's like she's just on call to do massages.
She does massages for our, like students in Rise campus that come over there.
So it's health. I mean, we can talk about a lot more stuff with health.
Time, of course.
Time.
Just freeing up of your time.
Yeah, because you have the staff cooking you dinner. You don't have to cook dinner. You don't have to go shopping.
Well, all these little things that bug you, about like, eating healthy is so hard in America because, things aren't open, the grocery stores.
Here's another thing. So when you're able to live a healthier life, how much more motivation, how much more time during the day do you have that you can focus and work
and it's a
play or whatever?
It's a combination of the fact that you have better health, more energetic, and the fact that you have people doing everything for you. So if you think about like what are the things in your life that you should be spending your time on, because you're an expert at what you do, but if you have to spend 6 hours a day doing these redundant, like, I don't know what the hell that is, but if you spend 6 hours a day just doing the normal things like shopping, grocery shopping and cleaning and doing whatever the hell your day is taken up by all these tasks, and then your energy level is reduced because of that. You put a lot of your core energy into doing these menial tasks, and you have like an hour or two a day where you can really be focused. But yeah, if you're delegating all of these things out, I have an executive person. I have multiple assistants, but I have an executive personal assistant who he's Max. He's like he's from Canada. He's a Westerner. He was a successful attorney in Canada. I think his best year, he almost cleared $1 million himself, So, I mean, he's highly successful, extremely intelligent, super focused and dedicated and loyal, knowledgeable about, he's been living here for 10 years, in Asia, so he's very knowledgeable. And, the amount that I pay him is so much lower than what I would pay in the United States for the same help. And he does everything. I mean, all I got to do is just like think about what I want done, and then text it, voice to text or something like that, or a quick phone call, and it just gets done. And then that frees up my time to be putting my core energies into the things that actually are going to make a difference. That's why, our salary, our income level just goes up and up and up all the time, because we're not spending an hour a day working, 15 minutes a day working, because all of our time is taken up by these other silly things. But you can put your core energy into the things that actually result in, money, and do some of the fun things that we've always wanted to do too, like running masterminds, and things like that.
Which brings us to our third point, relationships. How has it changed being in Asia versus?
Well, okay, there's a few different aspects of relationships that I think of. When I talk about relationships, I think of family and friends. I think of romantic relationships. I think of sex and things like that too, and just, whatever your love life is like. And all of those things are impacted a lot. For one thing, there's a downside to living in a third world country. You're 10,000 miles away from your family, and that can be kind of hard. But also, I just got a plane ticket for a family member to fly them over here and put them up in this luxury lifestyle, for a week or two. So, if you're saving so much money by living here, you can actually, afford to do stuff like that as well. So that's kind of hard, being away from my kids. My kids spend 10 months a year in America and 2 months here. That's tough. But, on the other side, like romantic, I mean, what is it like as a white boy, in Asia, like when it comes to dating? The dating scene it's not even remotely the same.
I just remember when I was when I was in college, and you're hanging out, and then there's some guy that's got like a British accent or something, and like the girls are like, woo, it's up,
Everybody's hanging over him.
That's you.
That's you, yeah.
Even though you're just some normal white dude, But in certain countries, you're like treated like a celebrity.
Yeah, this is true. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it does make your life feel significantly better. It's almost to the point of excess. That's the one thing. We should do an episode on excess, like the slippery slope of what, to watch out for when you're living in.
I kind of want to just ask you some probing questions about that.
Go for it if you want. But but there is. I mean, there's so on all these different levels that we're talking about, from health, wealth, relationships, and happiness. You can get to the point where you are living a life of excess, where it's like if somebody just hands you a piece of candy and you're like,
you win the lottery.
You feel like you're just like, this is the ultimate right here. But then somebody says, well, spit that out a second because I got another piece for you to try here. And you're like, but this is so good. Yeah, but this is good. All right. Fuck, that's really good, And you get into this cycle where life is throwing things at you from every different direction.
I feel like we're not talking about candy.
No, we are. No, we're not. I mean, it can be women, but it can also be lifestyle things, everything from every different direction. All the things that are important to you, when it just keeps throwing at you.
Like staff. I got staff for everything. Yes. I don't even wipe my own ass.
Yeah, it's like, why do I need 4 assistants? You know what I mean? But when money is no issue anymore, and you can live in excess. I think girls are a big part of that too. But if you think back to the analogy of candy, it's like every piece of amazing piece of candy that they deliver to you is amazing, and it doesn't stop this other piece of candy from being amazing either. It's like you get it to a point where you have to like keep things in perspective and realize that you can get trapped into this cycle where you fail to realize that what you have is almost like the best, that it's never going to get better. It's never going to get better. There's a study that was done, I think it was like Harvard University, where they bring this test group into an auditorium, and they have speakers talking about these fine arts, like some of the greatest artists in the world. And then they, at the end of this thing, they offer each person in the audience like a really nice print of their favorite painting, and you can just choose what painting that you want, and then they'll frame it for you. And these are college students, right? Mm-hmm. Frame it for you, and you can take it home. So this was as a psychological experiment or sociological experiment. They let you, so this one test group, they allow you to choose the painting that you want, and you take it home and you just keep it. Mm-hmm. Okay. This is a happiness experiment. The second group, they allow you can choose whatever painting that you want, and you have 3 days or 30 days or something like that to come back and exchange it if you want to. So you can only exchange it once though, right? So you're limited to one exchange. The third group, they give you 30 days or 90 days or something, and you can exchange it as many times as you want, okay? So these 3 different groups. And then after a few months, or they do this maybe several times, after a few months though, they come back and they interview each one of the people, and they ask them how happy they were with their choice. And maybe not surprisingly, but to me it kind of seems surprising that the group who just chose one, mm-hmm. they were extremely happy with their choice. They thought, this is like my favorite painting. I love having this, it's in my dorm, or it's in my apartment, and I look at it every day. I'm so happy with my choice. The middle group, where they had one exchange, a lot of them are happy with it, but a lot of them feel like, I exchanged it for this one. I kind of wish I hadn't now, The third group, where they got to exchange it as many times as they want within a certain period, they hate their final choice. They're like, fuck. Yeah, there were so many better choices out there. Like I'm not really happy with it. Sucks. So it's just a funny experiment on happiness that sometimes when you have excess choices, mm-hmm. it doesn't necessarily lead to ultimate happiness though. You gotta. So I think the
funny thing is, like you say excess, and I think of like going to the grocery store in the US, and you're standing there at the shampoo aisle, and it's like, and you're like, I don't know, what's it smell like? Like there's like, so many choices, or which ketchup do I get? There's like 10 brands of ketchup. Yeah, does that make you happier, or does it just make the experience frustrating? Yeah,
it's like, ask somebody whose hair is all matty and they have dirty, stinky body, and they just need some fucking soap, any soap.
there's different aspects to it, and it's interesting. And these are all kinds of things that we want to explore throughout the podcast.
I think that it will be interesting to people to see that there are other ways in life of achieving some of these core needs, rather than just being trapped into your blinders of the rat race in America or in the Western world. There's these big challenges in life. I want to be healthy, but it's so hard, like if you're sick, to achieve that. You want to be wealthy, and it can take you a decade or two to get to that point, and you probably will never even exceed what most people would consider to be wealthy. You might, say you're making $10,000 a month or whatever, in America. Most places that doesn't make you wealthy. It just makes you like maybe a little well off or comfortable, but not like you can just do anything you want. You still have to live within a box. There's only so much you can do. And then relationships too. So there's these hacks in life, and Rob and I have made jokes about this before. Like the ultimate hack in life is to get on a plane and just take a one-way ticket, to freedom, and come over to Asia or these third world countries where suddenly all the doors are open up for you and you're ushered through this amazing lifestyle.
We've kind of reached a point where we don't even have to do that. Like our income levels, we could do that
anywhere
in a more expensive place if we wanted to. It's just we want to live on a tropical island that people dream of retiring to, and
it's hard to go back to America at this point. And
what about? So let's talk about some of the places that you visited since you started traveling.
Well, I've tried to spend a fair amount of my time more recently traveling around Bali, or around Indonesia, and I just realized, like, man, there's a lot of amazing places. In fact, we should go to Java, and there's some amazing places over there, beautiful places that they're not touristic places like you're used to probably, or like we're used to. So just all around Bali and all these surrounding islands around Bali, those are amazing. The Philippines, there's so much more I want to see in the Philippines as well. Singapore, because it's like, I look at Singapore as like an American city if everyone in America were Asian. That's what it feels like to me. But Singapore, you can go shopping there, and it feels like you're in, a major,
very consumer oriented, like,
and everybody dresses, the way you would expect in America, and they have all the same traits and, things that you would expect to see in America. If you wanted to make a slow transition, third world, like plopping down in a third world country can be a shocking experience for some people. For me, I'm totally cool with it. I loved it, but it is a bit of a dramatic change.
So what are some of the other places you went? So Philippines,
Thailand, all around Thailand, Phuket. We're in Chiang Mai, Thailand right now. Bangkok, it's a huge city. And I've been around Europe as well, but just here in Asia. Probably some other places I can't think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, I've been to those places. I've been to, Korea, Italy, Barcelona. Italy was fun. My friend got married there, and so I went to Positano, which is like a little kind of beach town with like, it's really beautiful. It's like this big hillside that looks down on the beach, and we're in this big villa with panoramic views, and just hung out with my friends. We went to Rome together and just explored, did the tourist stuff, and then we went over to Positano, and it's called the Amalfi Coast. And it was just gorgeous. And then they left, and I just said, well, I'm just gonna stick around for a while. So I just got a place, like my own villa up on the hillside for another week or two. It's nice to have that freedom to just do whatever. That was fun. So Barcelona, Italy, South Korea, Japan, Vietnam. Vietnam is cool. It was interesting. Ho Chi Minh City is like, there's so many scooters and motorbikes, and there's no like stoplights or like, there's stoplights and stuff, but there's not like crosswalks all over the place. And the way that you cross the street is you literally just walk slowly into traffic. And, like,
and you just expect that the drivers are just
they kind of just swarm around you.
Yeah?
And the trick is you don't look at the oncoming traffic, because then you'll be like, hesitating. And if you freak out, then you'll probably get hit.
Yeah.
But if you're walking at a steady pace, slowly, then the drivers can anticipate and they can go around you. And it's so
creepy,
freaky to do it. But once you do it, it's no big deal. I wanted to do like a selfie video, like here I am crossing the street.
Just looking at your phone as you're going, not even paying attention.
But I just heard so many stories about people snatching cell phones.
that was the thing.
Like I had it in my head that I'd be walking along and somebody would go by and just be like,
probably.
So I didn't do it. But yeah, it's an interesting experience just walking into traffic slowly and having just this massive swarm of vehicles going around you. I actually saw in Da Nang, Vietnam, which is a little kind of beach town, kind of quiet beach town, there was this intersection I could see from my hotel room. And I looked down and it was this really big intersection, major road going this way, another road this way. And there's no stoplight. It's just people just drove from both directions. Some areas have stoplights, but in this area they didn't have any stoplights. And people would barely even slow down. And they'd be coming from, and they just, I don't know, they had it down. They'd slow down a little bit, and somehow they weaved in and out, and there was no problem. And what was crazy to me, because it looked like everybody should be getting in an accident like every few seconds, but it just worked. And then I looked down, and there's this old man on this bike, and it just reminded me of like Kermit the Frog, like riding a bicycle, this goofy sight. And this old man is just riding across the street diagonally across this intersection, not paying attention at all, just like he's in the middle of the park, and everybody just goes around him, no problem. And then another time in Ho Chi Minh City, there was a roundabout, huge roundabout, like 7 or 8 roads that came in, and then there's a huge roundabout that's like 3 or 4 lanes deep of cars going around and then turning off wherever. And then there's these teenagers, there's like 4 or 5 of them, and they don't like I would go up and be like, should I go this way, and try to strategize, and I'll run across this street, and how do we get over there? It's going to be an ordeal. They walked straight through the thing, and they're just like, they had the attitude like teenagers, they just don't care.
Checking on their cell phone as they go.
Yeah, right through the middle of just heavy traffic.
It almost sounds like, all this converging traffic and 12 lanes of chaos is almost less chaotic than just passing a 2-lane highway or something in America.
Yeah, it's like the less you think about it, the better it works. That's funny, the less planning that goes into it. So traveling around, you get these experiences that you would never have, and
there's a lot of other cool things I think that I want to touch on too, like during our podcast series. Like, there's some super interesting things that happen in a third world country that maybe you're not accustomed to seeing. We've experienced, like in the last month, I've had so many run-ins with black magic, which is a very real thing in Bali and most Asian countries for that matter. I want to get into that. I think that's fascinating. There's a volcano that's about to erupt in Bali right now that will affect our Rise campus, and there's I think it's like a 12 kilometer area where like big balls of molten lava fire are going to be shot down or rained down over villages and shit like that. Yeah,
that's something interesting to talk about. Should probably wrap it up, because we just got the signal that our memory card's running low.
Yeah, let's do that.
But yeah, so some of the stuff we're going to be talking about, these concepts of ultimate freedom, how you can kind of hack your way to more freedom and happiness as quickly as possible. We're going to be talking about some of the interesting experiences we've had around the world, how they've opened our eyes to different things, and just how you can achieve this kind of stuff faster and easier.
Let's wrap it up then. Cool. Episode 1 of the Ultimate Freedom Podcast.
That's a wrap.
Is money really the path to happiness? Or like, what is the fastest path to happiness? Well, I can tell you that if you achieve financial freedom, it's not going to put you in a perpetual state of happiness. It's going to feel good at momentary, from time to time. Maybe you'll be able to do more things, travel and do things that'll bring you more happiness.
Yeah, and happiness, it's not like a destination. It is a state.
It's a feeling,
Yeah. And so you're trying to achieve this feeling of happiness on a consistent basis, and that's